This is Coastal Daybreak on the Talk Station. Now, here's Ben Ball.
And welcome to our program. Our next guest is a first-time author telling his father's compelling story of heroism, perseverance, and racism on the USS North Carolina battleship. And joining us today to talk about this book called Uncommon Hero, the John Seagraves story. And we have joined us this morning is the author of the book, David Seagraves, is with us. Good morning, David. How are you?
Great. How are you this morning?
Thanks for being with us today. We're doing well. Many of us have been on the USS North Carolina touring this ship, as it is in Wilmington. And, in fact, it was actually a reunion, I understand, where you learned first about your father's exploits.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I didn't learn about it until after the reunion. I had a chance to find out about a photograph that was little known. And once I started digging around, asking questions of the staff and my father and his history I didn't know anything about until I started digging around. I come to find out he was a hero in his own right and had an interesting career at sea and fascinating story.
Now, did your father ever talk about his war experiences?
Never did. I knew he was on a battleship. That's all I ever knew.
You know, that's not really that unusual. My father was on an LST in World War II, and that's pretty much all I knew. And it was only when he had a reunion and somebody actually set down a tape recorder that I got to hear some of those stories. So, but that's not uncommon. So, what did you find out?
Well, I found out there were a couple of photographs that brought a lot of attention and actually created this book. The ship staff, Kim Sing Cox and Mary Ames Booker, responsible basically for the reunion and the museum as curators and so forth. They actually had been waiting for the time when my father would actually show up for a reunion to ask him about this photograph that he's in, and it's his gun crew. The photograph was taken actually after an engagement in which a kamikaze slipped through the defenses of the USS North Carolina while a returning operation of aircraft were returning to their aircraft carriers.
Right.
The kamikaze just dropped out of the sky. It was totally random, but it was headed straight toward their battleship. My father's trunnion operator actually spotted it. He was a real aircraft nut, and he spotted the anomaly in the sky, and he mentioned it to their gun officer who called it in, and they realized it was not one of theirs. Mm-hmm. And because he was my father's trunnion operator, my father had it in the scopes all this time. And as soon as he got the word to fire, he was the first one to get on this plane. Now, it still came really, really close. It only once everybody else got on to the fact that they had an enemy aircraft heading their way, everybody started firing. He got a first dibs on it, but the truth is, it still almost hit them. It only landed 30 yards off the left side of the ship.
Wow! Wow!
And basically, it's presumed that this event actually saved a lot of people's lives, including theirs, right on deck.
Now, another part, and it's a part of our history and part of our culture of that time in April 14th, 1945, is that I understand he was the first African-American gunner.
Yes, he actually crossed the racial barrier. He was not one of those people who could bring himself to shine the shoes and do the laundry and fetch water and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And every step through his journey in the Navy, they asked him to do that, and he just refused. And, of course, sometimes they threatened him with the brig and bread and water for 5 days, and he still refused. So he eventually chose to work with the officer's kitchen. And as soon as he got the officer's ear, he asked, well, can we get on a gun? Because actually he was in the powder room as well. I was kind of pushing double duty. Uh-huh. So he was in the powder room underneath one of those big 16-inch cannons, the big number 2 turret. And he thought, well, I'd like to do something different. Can we fire a gun? Can we get a gun crew together? So ultimately, there was an XO named Commander Stryker. This guy heard what my father asked, made it happen, put him on a gun. Turned out he was good at it. and they left him and his gun crew on the deck to defend the ship, which was a huge honor. That was way above anything they could do.
Well, excellent. Now, your father's still with us?
Yeah. He's 85 years young, and he and my mother are traveling with us during the reunion.
Oh, well, fantastic. And so, what does he think about you writing all this down? I mean, I think my father would have been not happy about it.
Well, he's really careful to make sure that people understood he was not the only gunner on the ship.
Yeah,
and that's the one thing, he's a modest guy. And I guess it plays into the reality that he never told me anything about any of these escapades or heroics until age 50 when the story came up. And if it hadn't come up, it would have remained unsaid for a lifetime. And I would have never known who he was. And that's the real tragedy of it, is that it could have gone really badly, just a son not knowing who his father really was. But
he was pretty young then, too, right? I mean,
he sure was.
Yeah,
18 years old.
Yeah. Amazing.
18 years old. You think about the kids nowadays with video games and how good they are at it.
Yeah.
Well, this was a real life game, and life and death, and he handled it really well.
Yeah, and so he and your mother are still traveling together, making the reunion. That's great.
They're having a blast.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Again, I know there's nothing like those reunions, though, to bring out some of those stories. There may be another book coming.
Well, his is covered, but there have been other people who've asked me, if I was interested in writing their story, and then they start coming up with all these wonderful tales. And you think to yourself, holy mackerel, what is going on? All these people with wonderful stories to tell, and no one's there to tell it.
Yeah, and it is important that you got this story down, and it's important that others get those stories down as well, too, because we're losing that generation. Not everybody was 18 when they joined, so...
Absolutely. He was 16 when he signed up, and there's a whole life story that's behind all of this that he just never wanted to tell anybody.
What did he do after the Navy?
He actually went on, he wanted to be a restaurateur, and he struggled to get his opportunities, but he was persistent. And that's really what the story is about. Young kid, African-American youngster who comes up from absolute dirt poverty and found a way to prosper, find a way to meet his sweetheart, have a family, be successful in business. That's really what the book is about. Although this 5 or 10 minute moment really kind of defines his lifetime.
Right. Certainly.
Willingness to face all the odds and with courage and really enthusiasm. He really wanted to do this stuff. And so it wasn't a reach or, anything super courageous to him. It was just what the job called for.
So what kind of restaurants has he operated?
It's country cooking, which in the South means soul food.
Yeah, you bet. You bet.
Nothing wrong with that, right?
Is he good with collards? That's what I want to know.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, macaroni and cheese and dressing and fried chicken.
I'm there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good thing I don't live in the area anymore because I weigh about 240. If I hung around there too long, I'd be about 340.
Yeah, so, no doubt. But hey, the kitchen found his way to the XO. So
that's exactly right.
And that's also apparently served him well over his life, and again you as well too. So again, David Seagraves grew up knowing nothing about his father's stories, but then has learned now, thanks to reunion and thanks to ongoing reunions now. Uncommon Hero, the John Seagraves story. Is this out everywhere now?
It's out on Amazon. You can pick it up for $22.95. You can download it on Kindle for $8.99. And we'll be in the bookstore at the ship, and we'll be doing a book signing on May 19th. That's this coming Saturday from 1 to 3.
Okay.
My father and I will be there signing books, and hopefully come on down and take a tour of the ship.
All right, so everybody's going to be there. That'd be great. That's going to be at the bookstore at the ship, and that'll be from 1 to 3 this coming Saturday in Wilmington. So go check that out, and I know that you'll enjoy it. And David, thanks for joining us today. Fantastic story.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Uncommon Hero, the John Seagraves story about being on board the USS Wilmington. That's a great story there.
Yeah.
This is Coastal Daybreak here on the Talk Station, FM 107, AM 1240. More to come in a moment.